The Exodus, a journey to freedom. The sands of time whisper tales of oppression, of a people enslaved, and a God who answered their cries. Prepare to witness the epic story of the Exodus, a journey from the depths of despair to the heights of liberation. Imagine ancient Egypt, a land of towering pyramids and immense power, but also a land stained by the sweat and tears of Hebrew slaves. For generations, they toiled under the cruel hand of Pharaoh, their backs breaking under the weight of his ambition. Pharaoh, consumed by fear of the Hebrews' growing numbers, issued a decree of unimaginable cruelty. He ordered the death of all newborn Hebrew boys, a desperate attempt to crush their spirit and extinguish their future. In the face of such tyranny, a mother's love became an act of rebellion. Jochebed, a Hebrew woman, defied Pharaoh's wicked decree. She hid her newborn son, Moses, for as long as she could, her heart pounding with each passing day. When she could hide him no longer, she wove a basket, waterproofed it with pitch, and placed her precious child within. With a prayer on her lips, she set the basket adrift on the Nile, entrusting her son to the currents of fate. Fate, or rather divine providence, intervened. Pharaoh's own daughter discovered the basket and the crying infant within. Moved by compassion, she defied her father's orders and chose to raise Moses as her own son. The irony is profound. Moses, a Hebrew child, was raised in the very palace of his oppressor. Moses grew up in the lap of luxury, enjoying the privileges of Egyptian royalty. Yet, he could not ignore the suffering of his people. He witnessed their pain, their exhaustion, and the brutality of their masters. One day, witnessing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, Moses' anger boiled over. He struck down the Egyptian, killing him. Fearing Pharaoh's wrath, Moses fled Egypt, seeking refuge in the land of Midian. In Midian, Moses found solace and a new life. He became a shepherd, tending to the flocks of Jethro, a priest of Midian. He married Jethro's daughter, Zipporah, and started a family. But the memory of his people's suffering never faded. One fateful day, while tending his flock near Mount Horeb, Moses encountered a sight that would forever change his destiny. A bush was ablaze, yet it was not consumed by the flames. Drawn by this miraculous phenomenon, Moses approached. A voice boomed from the burning bush, the voice of God himself. God revealed his sacred name, Yahweh, and declared his intention to deliver the Hebrews from their bondage. He commanded Moses to return to Egypt and demand Pharaoh to release his people. Moses, overwhelmed and feeling inadequate, expressed his reluctance. He questioned his ability to speak eloquently and doubted that the Hebrews would believe him. But God reassured him, promising his divine guidance and providing Aaron, Moses' brother, to be his spokesman. Empowered by God's promise, Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt and stood before Pharaoh. With unwavering courage, they delivered God's message. "Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness." Pharaoh, hardened by pride and arrogance, scoffed at their demand. He refused to release the Hebrews and, in a cruel act of defiance, increased their workload, making their lives even more unbearable. The Hebrews, crushed by this added burden, turned their resentment towards Moses and Aaron. They accused them of making their situation worse, their hope dwindling with each passing day. Pharaoh's defiance unleashed a series of devastating plagues upon Egypt, each a demonstration of God's power and a warning to the unyielding ruler. The land was plunged into chaos and suffering. First, the Nile River, the lifeblood of Egypt, turned to blood, killing the fish and rendering the water undrinkable. The Egyptians were horrified, but Pharaoh remained unmoved. Next, swarms of frogs emerged from the Nile, invading homes and covering the land. The Egyptians were disgusted, but Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. Then came swarms of gnats, or lice, tormenting both humans and animals. The Egyptians were plagued by itching and discomfort, but Pharaoh refused to yield. Swarms of flies descended upon Egypt, spreading disease and further disrupting daily life. The Egyptians were overwhelmed, but Pharaoh's stubbornness persisted. A deadly disease struck the livestock, wiping out cattle, horses, and other animals. The Egyptians suffered economic hardship, but Pharaoh's pride remained unbroken. Painful boils erupted on the skin of humans and animals, causing intense suffering. The Egyptians were in agony, but Pharaoh's resolve remained firm. Destructive hailstorms ravaged the land, destroying crops and killing livestock. The Egyptians faced famine, but Pharaoh's heart remained unyielding. Swarms of locusts devoured what remained of the crops, leaving the land barren and desolate. The Egyptians faced starvation, but Pharaoh's obstinacy endured. A thick darkness enveloped Egypt for 3 days, plunging the land into an eerie and terrifying gloom. The Egyptians were gripped by fear, but Pharaoh's defiance continued. Finally, the most devastating plague of all struck: the death of the firstborn sons of Egypt. From the palace of Pharaoh to the humblest home, grief and despair filled the land. Pharaoh's reactions throughout the plagues were a mix of defiance, temporary concessions, and ultimately, stubborn refusal. He would offer to let the Hebrews go, only to retract his promise when the plague subsided. His heart was hardened, his pride blinding him to the consequences of his actions. After the death of his own son, Pharaoh's resistance finally crumbled. He summoned Moses and Aaron and commanded them to leave Egypt with their people. The Hebrews, after generations of slavery, were finally free. They gathered their belongings, their hearts filled with a mixture of joy and trepidation. They followed Moses out of Egypt, a nation reborn, leaving behind the land of their oppression. God guided them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, leading them towards the promised land. The Exodus had begun, a journey of faith and liberation. As the Hebrews journeyed towards freedom, Pharaoh's heart hardened once again. He regretted his decision to let them go and assembled his army to pursue them. The Hebrews found themselves trapped between the Red Sea and the approaching Egyptian army. Fear gripped their hearts. Moses, guided by God, stretched out his hand over the sea. A strong east wind blew all night, dividing the waters and creating a path through the sea. The Hebrews walked through on dry ground, the walls of water towering on either side. Pharaoh, in his relentless pursuit, led his army into the sea after the Hebrews. But as the last of the Hebrews reached the other side, God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand again. The waters rushed back, engulfing Pharaoh and his entire army. The Hebrews watched in awe and disbelief as their oppressors were swallowed by the sea. They were free, their faith in God vindicated. They sang songs of praise and thanksgiving, celebrating their liberation and the triumph of God's power. The Exodus is more than just a historical event. It is a testament to the power of faith, the resilience of the human spirit, and the unwavering promise of God's deliverance. The Hebrews, once slaves, were now a free nation, ready to embark on their journey to the Promised Land. The story of the Exodus reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope remains. It teaches us that with faith and courage, we can overcome any obstacle and achieve true freedom. What resonates most with you about the Exodus story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Exodus is a timeless story of faith, courage, and divine intervention. It reminds us that even in the face of overwhelming oppression, hope can prevail. The journey of the Israelites from slavery to freedom is a powerful testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the unwavering promise of God's deliverance. Now, we invite you to delve deeper into this incredible story. Read the book of Exodus in the Bible, reflect on its profound lessons, and share this video with your friends and family. Let the message of hope and liberation inspire you to overcome your own challenges and to stand up for justice and freedom in the world. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories from the Bible and join our community of faith. Together, let us celebrate the enduring power of God's love and the promise of a brighter future.